Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame Case for ... And I'm Kirk Buckner. I run NotHallOfFame.com and the United States Athletics Hall of Fame, of which my co-host here today is also part of the nominated committee, Vinny Lospinuso. Hence, if you're going to have a show called Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame Case for, you need a Vinny.
Yeah, you need me.
Yes, we do. And this one that we're starting off with, I don't know for sure, but it feels like this is the first one that we decided together. I know when I first pitched this to you, for the most part, you just usually tell me who it is that you're going to do. We were discussing this, and this coincides with something that I'm working on the side of Not Hall of Fame, which is the revisions of those who should be considered for the Basketball Hall of Fame. And for the first time, well, not for the first time, the first time that this gentleman is now number one on the rank. And the way we sort of come up with that is mostly through a lot of it is just sort of like my own self and through a lot of research. And then it alters based on votes from all of you and then comments. Taking over number one is one of the forgotten players of the 1950s, Larry Foust.
Yeah, Larry Foust, someone whose case always interested me because outside of Leroy Edwards and Max Kozlowski, I see those three, with Foust included, as the holy trinity of forgotten legends that should definitely be in Springfield. And Larry Foust is the most documented one, mostly because his career accolades are a little bit easier to understand from a more mainstream perspective, whereas with Edwards, you're gonna go back and see the old NBL stuff, and Kozlowski, he played in a time where All-Star games didn't exist, so that might be a little bit harder. But Larry Foust is someone that I have no idea why he's not in.
You and a lot of other people. 8-time All-Star, multi-time first-team All NBA. I couldn't find out that much of what he did at LaSalle, where he played college.
In LaSalle and Philadelphia, I know he made the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. My understanding, he won it's like a division title or a league title or several titles over there. Like he was considered arguably the best player in that area at that time in the college.
Well, he must have been pretty good because he went 6th overall in that respective draft.
Yeah, he was in the same draft class as, in fact, it was a phenomenal draft class. You had Paul Arizin with a territorial pick. You had Bob Cousy, 3rd overall. George Yardley, Chuck Cooper, and Bill Sharman were all in that draft class. And then if you go all the way to the 9th pick, you had Earl Lloyd also in that draft class also. So a pretty loaded draft class, if I do say so myself.
Well, no, and obviously I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. When we look at the numbers, I think if you look at it with a modern lens, you're not impressed. People have to remember that there was not the shot clock didn't exist. I read one thing too. Foust sort of like scored a winning basket in the lowest scoring game of all time, of a 1918 game.
That was when he was with the Pistons,
right, where he had most of his run in Fort Wayne.
Yes, they were, before they were the Detroit Pistons, they were the Fort Wayne Pistons, and I think the fact that Pistons moved from Fort Wayne to Detroit also probably hurted him as well. But when you look at All-Stars as a whole, for a long time, Jack Sickman was someone that people really pushed for, and he had 7 All-Stars, and he finally made it. Larry Foust has 8 All-Star. Like the highest for people, usually for guys that don't make it, is like 4 or 6, or in that borderline area. Foust has 8. So he has 2 more than people that are seen on like the outside looking in. So Foust is way more than them. Plus, not only that, Larry Foust was a part of many teams and played a very significant role upon many teams that went to the finals. In fact, he went to 5 finals throughout his career and 6 division finals, which was basically at that time the equivalent of the Eastern or Western Conference finals.
But he didn't win one.
Unfortunately for Faust, yeah, that's true. He went to 5 finals, which I think is some of the most for a non-Celtic ever. However, he also has, I think, like the third most amount of losses in the finals. 0-5. For not only that, he was a very dominant player in the 50s. However, unfortunately with him, I think he has the most amount of losses in the 1950s also. But I don't really blame that much on him. His win shares were very high at the time. So I'm not going to hold that against him.
I think there's a few things that would work against him. One, I mean, when you think of a center in the 1950s, the first name that everyone comes up with, myself included, is George Mikan.
Yes, he was around that same time as Mike Yin and some of these other guys, those big men at the time. I think he was like considered in that 46 to 60 year, like the very early days of the BBA or NBA.
Mm-hmm.
He was considered the 5th best of that time and was
Like fifth
very
best center or fifth best player?
5th best center. He was the 5th best center, and he was actually in many ways a prototype for what a very agile big man of today you would see. He was very aggressive under the boards, and he was very agile when it came to handling the ball.
You know, I think the other interesting thing too is you can understand why people today might have not remember him, because why would they? No one's no one alive essentially would have seen him play at this point. What I don't understand, and a lot of people, because I was sort of like, you just type in Larry Foust Hall of Fame, and thread upon thread upon thread will sort of reference that, like, they can't figure out how he slipped through the cracks.
That's what
Because
he's mostly known for. He's known as the guy that has all this, but just has not been named. I mean, I know in some instances he would like fall off the ballot, but then we get added in. I'm gonna try to get him in on the ballot this year. Let's see what happens with that.
Mhm.
But the crazy thing with Larry Faust when it comes to his Hall of Fame case, granted, I use the percentage meter for the Hall of Fame probability.
Oh, the
He's
basketball reference.
94.2%. Yes, that's by
Yeah.
far the highest of anyone not in. When it's that high, over 90%, almost 95%, and for whatever reason, he's just not in.
Well, I think we sort of touched on a bit of that, the lack of titles.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, and you can't sort of blame them for that. When you look at, and it's hard to find any footage on him at all. So I did sort of like find it like a 10-minute thing, but it was really pretty much recycling the same footage. Uh, if you're, again, looking at it with a modern lens, it's a much slower game. Again, no shot clock. You think there's not that reason to sort of like push through. He still averaged in most years over 10 boards a game. Was usually good for a double double. For his time, a ferocious defender. I mean,
Definitely,
it
very much.
doesn't play out that well now. And then you see sometimes like the clips of him sort of like doing a free throw, and it's the underhand, but a lot of them did that back then.
Yeah, the grainy style, people may know it more for, Rick Barry, but back then, a lot of people more so did it underhand as they saw it as a much easier motion for them.
Which it was.
Mhm.
Yeah. Uh, but for, again, a lot of the same people who would have been part of. Well, again, I don't even know, because we don't even know who decides any of this.
Nope.
So I was looking to see, like, is there a character defect? Is it?
No,
I
I
couldn't
think
find anything.
there is something I think probably held him back a little bit. He died in 1984 at the age of 56.
Okay.
So him being dead for 40 years probably doesn't help things for him. And but it's not like his family hasn't tried. I'm trying to find some of his family members.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be shocked if they played a role in him getting into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. It would not surprise me, because I know his family he died in Pittsburgh, so he spent time as a kid in Philly, and then as an adult, he spent time in Pittsburgh. So on both ends of Pennsylvania, I'm trying to see if he can get into the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame. That's something I'm going to try to do.
Yeah.
Um,
And just
but
for the people who are just tuning in for the first time, Vinny does a lot of work with the Western Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame. So and is very active in talking to other people in state level halls of fame. So I just wanted to sort of give a shout out there.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta do stuff like that because it's similar to like politics in many ways. Not in terms of like, not necessarily like in what you're probably thinking of. I mean, in terms of like, you look at what stuff gets done at the local level. I mean, compare that to the national level. With the national level, it's so hard to really penetrate through that zeitgeist of people. Similarly, when it comes to like Hall of Fames, whether the people that are in the national may not be aware, or they're too busy, or they don't care about that stuff as much as the more local people, they're not going to be as interested. But for the local levels, they're going to be much more interested because they tend to have a lot more passion and more avocation for these people. Again, I'm not saying all of them are like that, but the ones that I personally have seen tend to be more closer to that by comparison.
Mhm. I wonder also too, what because the NBA was not very integrated back then too. So I wonder if like modern voters are just thinking, well, okay, yeah, he was able to rack up all this, but he didn't play against the best competition. It's not his fault.
Well, yeah, it's not his fault at all, and I think that probably plays into it too. Probably same for football. I think there you get some people online that, football, oh, he wasn't that good because he didn't play against the black players. Well, one, that's implying that the black players he could get up against would be by far significantly better than him. And two, that's also implying that he chose willingly to participate in stuff like that against African American, not against African American athletes. He had
Well,
no control over that. He
well,
was just a kid from
that's what I
Philadelphia.
was looking for, right? Like, is there some because we've seen that with. I mean, Ty Cobb was just so goddamn good. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered anyway, I suppose. But also, he got
Yeah,
elected in the first ballot, so that wouldn't have.
yeah, wouldn't have
Thought
happened.
processes were certainly a lot different then, and thankfully they've changed. But I could see some people, and myself included to a certain point, are they held to a lesser standard because of that? So, I mean, we kind of heard rumblings that maybe that's why Buddy Parker got turfed.
Yeah, Buddy Parker played a bit of a
I
role
don't
in that,
know.
which I'll be blatant here. That's racist if they actually did say that. If that is
Well,
the case, it is very racist.
we don't know
And
completely what went on there and what he may or may not have said. To be
I
fair,
mean, it's very it's just so I'm still not thrilled about it because I just felt like it was bitterness because they didn't put Robert Kraft in or Mike Shanahan. That's what I heard. It was just like bitterness among some of these other
okay,
voters.
we
But
don't know, but we're trying to like throw crap at a wall, and I was doing everything I could to sort of like find out, like again, is there some kind of character defect? I think also too, and I couldn't find one. I couldn't find anything that indicated that Larry was a bad dude in any capacity.
I
Uh,
don't think Buddy Parker was a bad dude either. I think just the voters are the bad dudes here in the
but
end, not them.
the other thing too, and this is so superficial. You know, you look at when you look at like the clips you see of Larry Faust. Larry was already bald by 30.
Didn't
He
have didn't have GLH or Bosley back then.
What's GLH?
Hair in a can.
Oh, okay. Uh, I no, I suppose not. I guess aesthetically, when you look at this guy who's in his late 20s, looks like he's in his early 40s. I don't know. I mean, does that play something subconscious? I'm throwing crap at a wall. I don't know.
I
Because I'm
mean,
about
back then you see people in their 20s, they look like they're in their 40s. Oh, it's like,
sure, but I mean, like he was like premature baldness does accelerate that.
well, the thing too is it doesn't help that in the NBA there's also a lot of people that have a lot of anger against, European guys being dominant. Like, you see people on podcasts that question how good Jokic is and think that he gets preferential treatment because he's white, which is not true at all. You even seen him with the women's game. You see people going after Caitlin Clark because partially
Yeah, but
because
okay,
she's a.
but that's a completely different thing than when we're trying to figure out.
I'm just throwing stuff at the
Yeah, no,
wall.
yeah, no, I hear you because like this is one of the bigger mysteries because again, I can't find a negative thing in his ledger other than no titles.
And well, And yeah, he may have been 0-5 in the finals, but
Mhm.
how many guys even go to one finals? Look at like right now.
Tracy McGrady.
You Tracy McGrady never went to a finals. Grant Hill never went to a finals. You have Vince Carter never went to a finals. No one's questioning how good they were. And you look at other guys that have been to finals,
There's film.
and you know, you look at also, Chris Paul only went to one finals in his career. Carmelo Anthony never went to a finals. You have Russell Westbrook only went to one finals. Larry Foust, as an all-star level center, went to 5 NBA finals. Yes, it was in a time where there were 8 teams. Yes, it was also a different game back then. However, a lot of these arguments are from the same people that complain that, oh, it's they say they always get upset when a team is added because they see it as, oh, you're watering down the product. But at the same time,
They're
they
not
say
wrong.
it's also, yeah, they're not wrong, but they also say it's harder to win than ever.
Mhm.
But by the same time, you also are saying that back then it was better because there were less teams. So shouldn't you be actually helping out Larry Faust and trying to argue that he actually wasn't that good because of that? Like, it just feels weird. It sounds so contradictory, but also not surprising.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be mistaken on this. He wasn't even a preliminary nominee on the
No,
last ballot, or was he? I know he's been
no,
before.
because I know that sometimes if people don't vote it for if people don't vote it like for a few years, he gets fallen off, and then you can get put him back on in like another year or two. So he'll be back on there pretty soon. I guarantee you he will.
I know I agree with you, but I mean it's just sort of fascinating though. He's not there. I think the veterans one was Walter Davis or no, no Dick Barnett. Sorry,
No, no, Dick Barnett was,
yeah, Dick
and
Barnett. Sorry, and no, again, no disrespect to Dick Barnett, who you and I are both. We've talked about him and what he did in college with Tennessee A&I was incredible. Does he
Mhm.
have the overall legacy that Faust does? Yeah,
it,
I don't
it,
think
it,
so.
it depends on how you frame. It depends on how you frame that really,
Yeah.
honestly. Like, it really depends on your framing. Not only that, I would not be surprised if they also put in Barnett over someone like Edwards or Zazlowski or Faust, because he's alive and they're not. And I'm trying to see what I could do to try to help increase the number of veterans, try to help make it a little bit easier for the people that are long dead. I know you get those people that complain that someone's in the hall, but like, listen, I'm not gonna pay attention to those people.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, so I think this has sort of been an interesting thing. I encourage people to sort of like look up Larry Faust. It's not necessarily a fascinating story in terms of him, but statistically and where he was in that perception of that era,
Hmm.
how that didn't translate into an early Hall of Fame induction is a mystery, especially considering that the Basketball Hall of Fame started very early. So it's not like they got a late jump on this.
Maybe they know someone we don't. I don't know. Like, there
Well,
has
that's
to
what I
be
was trying to
something.
figure out. I couldn't find a damn thing.
Yeah, it just feels very weird. But like, maybe there's something. I don't know. Let's see what happens.
It's
Um,
easier to keep assholes out. Vinny and we're recording a few of these at the same time, and we're going to be talking about an asshole later.
yeah, though I have a bone to pick for that too when we get to it.
I know you do. So again, just like one player, probably the best player you never heard of. Because I'll admit, a few years ago, I didn't know who he was either.
I knew who he was a few years
I
ago.
know you did. You're Whiz Kid Vinny. You, of course, you do.
Yes.
I've accepted a long time ago. You're half my age, and you know twice more than I do in terms of this stuff. Also, I drink a lot,
Perhaps.
so I don't remember things that I learned.
Indeed.
So, with that, wherever you are, wherever you may be, make this day count because it never comes again. Take care, everybody.